Welcome, friends. I'm Dr. Tondi, and we've had some technical difficulties, but praise God, we are going to record this on Zoom, and this is going to be some really valuable information. I am so excited. We get to hear from Mr. Wayne Harris. Mr. Harris is a business professional specialist in risk, loss management, and insurance claims. He is a licensed public adjuster and manager for professional claims. And most people don't know it, but they can have a professional adjuster represent their best interests when dealing with insurance company claims. And that is what public adjusters are licensed to do for you. So the next time you have a question and you need someone to help, call Mr. Harris. And the thing that we often don't realize is that we feel like the insurance companies are on our side, right? But they're really not. They're on the insurance company side. Isn't that the case?
Well, the truth of the matter is most insurance companies are banks. Most of the large ones started off as banks, but that's literally what they do. They take premiums and they work with that money. They use that money. So they are for-profit organizations, and their bottom line is their main goal. Yes.
So it's in their best interest to keep as much money as they can and pay out as little as they can.
Doc, you just said the whole insurance industry in a basic line. If I can start by giving you a basic kind of story that makes it all make sense. So most people are familiar with insurance in one way or another, but most people have dealt with probably car insurance or life insurance. So let's say, for instance, you bought $100,000 life insurance policy on a loved one, and God forbid that loved one passed away. What are you expecting? You're expecting them to give you what?
Oh,
$100,000, correct? Could
mhm.
you imagine you call the insurance company and said, but my loved one that I insured passed away, and the insurance company says, okay, we're going to send out one of our adjusters to take a look at your loved one. They take a look at him and they go, tell you what, we think he was worth 15,000, and they write you a check and walk away. You'd be like, what? Well, that's kind of how it is dealing with your home and commercial. Yes, you have the loss, but they reserve the right. The policy is written where they get to come out and tell you how much they're supposed to pay you for it. Even though you're paying for this full amount, they're only obligated to give you what they think they should give you. Sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly how it works.
So you're saying that I could have $100,000 policy, but the insurance company could decide to give me much less than that.
You can have $1 million policy, and that's what their adjusters do. Their whole process is to tell you, and you call them, and they send somebody out, and they look around, and they send you a nice letter telling you what they have come up with, what they ascertain that they should pay you, and that's what they give you.
That's wild. The reason why we are here today is because, recently we saw the fires in LA, which were absolutely horrific. And my prayers go out to all of the families that were affected and who lost homes and loved ones and property. And I remember looking and thinking, well, that's LA. That's so far away. I'm glad, we don't have wildfires here in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, a few days ago, I'm at home and I hear all of these sirens and I look out the window. There's all these ambulance, police trucks, fire trucks. I open the door, I smell smoke. My neighbor's house, a few houses down, was on fire right next door. And I think that fire, and it was horrible. She lost everything. And actually, I am going to ask if anyone is willing to give a donation in the fundraising for her. You're more than welcome to. But just to see someone watching their home go down in smoke was just so heartbreaking. We had to the neighbors had to hold her back from running back inside the house. And I realized that fires, I mean, we know in our head that fires can happen anywhere, but they really can. And the better prepared we are, the better we are to come out ahead in that situation. We don't want to be the people who have been paying on a insurance policy and then end up with with an insurance company denying the claim. Have you seen that before where somebody's
Right.
caught on fire?
All the time. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. Well, first, again, I got into this business because that was my situation. Our family home, my mom's home, caught on fire and burned to the ground, lost every single thing she had, got out with the clothes on her back. And that was my first delving into this whole idea of fires. And you said in this area, but per capita, meaning for the number of people living in an area, New York, Washington, and Baltimore are the three highest in the whole country. And I don't know if you saw in the news last night, I happened to be looking, they're having wildfires literally in New York, like near New York City. There were just fires burning out of control. People were so yes, the fire can affect anyone anywhere. But to tell you the truth, Doc, it's not just fires. It's like you say, and the floods, anything where you would lose everything. And I know people have probably been hearing a lot on the news recently with insurance companies completely just pulling out of the area. So we're not going to insure people there anymore. We are going to come up with, we're just not going to pay these claims. Understanding that it's all legal. The policy you have is a legal and binding contract that states how and how much they're going to pay. So, and people just don't know. Most people get insurance, they get car insurance when they buy a car. If it's a new car and they haven't had insurance before, they let the dealer or somebody they just call someone. Most people get their homeowner's insurance when they buy a house. They have no idea. They sign the papers. If they had another house, they'll roll it over, but they just have no idea what it means or how it's covered. So not only did you experience your neighbor having a fire, that's also when most people find out what's going to happen afterwards. Now, you saw all those trucks there and all the excitement and lights. Tell the people what happened when it was all over. The trucks pull away, all the lights go off, and you're stuck there with what's left. It's that's it. They go away.
Yes. Yes. Her windows are all boarded up with wood, and it's really sad to see. It really is. So let's talk about some of the mistakes that you see people making before, during, and after a fire so that we can be informed and make better decisions. So starting with the before, what since you were talking about the insurance policies, is there anything special that we need to pay attention to, or any ways that we need to modify our home insurance policies or renters policies to make sure that we are adequately covered in the case of a fire or flood?
Yes. And since we're talking about before, let me give you, do you know what the number one reason for fires are in homes? Would you believe it's the dryer vent? Yeah.
Really?
I kid you not. And just this past week, I was at a single lady's home and pulled her dryer out to look. And would you believe it wasn't even connected to the vent going out of the house? And she says, "Oh, it's probably been like that a couple of years. There's 3 inches of lint underneath there." And she's just never pulled it out. And she always says that when she goes by, she always notices a lot of heat coming out of the room, but she just paid it on my, yeah. But fires from vents are the reason because a lot of lint gets trapped in there. And in fact, especially if you have a plastic one, those are outlawed. You're not supposed to even have plastic because they hold it and they catch on fire. So speaking of before and being preventive, um, plugging too many plugs into outlets and these extenders. Hey, do not put your computer on the bed to charge it. I've had two fires. Me personally representing, they get hot. They will set things on fire. And phones. Leave them on solid surfaces away from curtains. Yes, I wish I could show you pictures now, but I haven't. Yeah. Fire plainly and simply just left the computer on the bed. The computer has vents and it has to breathe. You hear that fan coming on? When it gets overheated, I have a buddy, a personal friend of mine, whose house, beautiful home on the water, burned to the ground. What burned it up? He took a ride on his e-bike, brought it home, put it in the shed, plugged it in, caught on fire. So all those e-bikes and scooters, especially if you buy aftermarket plugs to plug them in with, they overheat. So these are some of the simple ones that cause fires all the time, but don't think about it. There's another one. You all, honestly, Doc, the fire department can do just as much or more damage than a fire can. If you burn a piece of toast, call the fire department. Throw that toast and the toast outside before they get there. Because when they come, they are coming to save lives. They do great jobs, but they're kicking in doors, they're tearing up stuff and spraying water. So another preventative thing is if you have a fire extinguisher, learn how to use it at the base of the fire and put the fire out. There's so many things you can do, but if you ever had, and someone told me that last week also, they didn't call the fire department for a fire. They called the fire department because water was gushing up. They thought they had a broken pipe. And she said 20 guys showed up and dragged all these equipment through their house, tore up her floors, just made a mess. So there's more than just a fire that does damage. And this is all in the before. So preventative is try not to have a fire. Check on your plumbing. 3 weeks ago, a woman calls me. She went out of town in the middle of January and turned her heater off. Need I tell you what happened? Pipes burst. And she told the insurance company that she did that. They denied her claim because it's up to you to take steps. You can't do anything that's going to do it intentional. So a lot of information, but let me take a side and just tell you something. Insurance works like this. Insurance covers losses. There's 3 things that meet the requirement. It has to be, 1, an accident. You didn't do it intentionally. You can fall asleep in bed smoking. That was an accident. You didn't intend to set your bed on fire, set yourself on fire. You can leave the computer on the bed. That was an accident. There's 2 other things. It has to happen 1 time. They're going to ask for a date of the loss. When did this happen? You can't let, like a client said once, they asked, have you had any problems? So he said, yes. There have been sparks coming out of that outlet for months, and I told my husband to fix it. Did it? You had an ongoing problem that you didn't fix, and you told him you did. So it has to happen 1 time. It has to be an accident. Number 3, it has to be unforeseen. Was there anything that you could have done? So even when you have things done in your home, they'll ask, have you had any repairs done recently? Yes. Who did them? Well, my cousin Tom. Was he a licensed professional? You're supposed to take steps. Is there anything you could have done? So those 3 criteria are oftentimes, so this is, we're still talking about before, Doc. These are things you do before you have any kind of a loss to make sure if the loss happens, it's still covered and it's still taken care of, at least to be covered, so you won't be denied. So these are some of the before things. Be preventative, learn, educate yourself as much as you can, and then get yourself insured correctly. Those are 2 big things you can do.
Okay, so don't let cousin Tom fix the electric, put up the chandelier. Get a actual electrician. And
That would be better. Get a licensed electrician. But then, if nothing else, your cousin Tom could be a licensed electrician. But you don't have to tell him. You don't remember who put it up. People say, get those guys out of the parking lot at the local hardware store. You never see them again. Yeah, that's considered not taking best interest in your property. Yes.
so basically, after you've had a fire, it's almost like on the TV shows when you get arrested that everything you say can
Mhm.
and will be used against you in the court of the insurance company. So it sounds like you have to be really careful about what information you choose to divulge. Um,
You are absolutely correct. You call in your claim, or they go online. The first thing I'm going to say is, Mrs. Jones, thank you for calling. We need to let you know your call is being recorded. Why do you think they're recording your call? Your call is being recorded. They're going to make you, oh, we're so sorry this is happening. We feel, and they're going to start asking you questions. And everything you say is for that reason. When did this happen? Those 3 things are going to start asking you questions along those lines to find out if you're going to say anything. Yes, we did it. Well, in the last storm, something happened. In this storm, a little something. And you can give them 3 storms. That means it's been an ongoing problem. Remember, the loss has to happen 1 time. So be careful. Yes, don't get to running your mouth. And you know what's really interesting, Doc? Most people get to running their mouth things they don't really even know. When did the fire start? Well, it started. You don't know where the fire started. You're not a fire professional. Shut up, because you really don't know. That's what the specialists have to prove. That would be like somebody accused you of murder. Well, how did the guy die? Well, yeah, my gun went off and I shot him. It wasn't even your gun. So yes, shut up. Everything
so
you say. Yeah.
you have the right to remain silent.
Remain silent.
So
Correct.
let's talk about fire extinguishers. How many fire extinguishers should we have in our homes?
Now, that's a good question. If you have a 1 level, you should have a fire extinguisher where you can get to one. The requirements are usually to have them like in areas where you cook, kitchens and everything, but you really can't have too many. And I think I sent you something about they even have these spray cans that kind of put out with a chemical in it. A fire needs a flame and it needs air. So there's different kinds of fire extinguishers also. There's soda, there's different kinds. So you would use the same one on a grease fire in your kitchen that you would on some rags. So I'm going to tell everybody without taking too much time, find out about fire extinguishers, okay? And don't go spraying water on a grease fire on the stove. It's going to spread. It's going to get worse. One big fire I had a funny story was happened at the holidays. These guys bought a turkey fryer, filled it up with grease, turned it on hot, and dropped the frozen turkey on their deck. And whoosh, hot grease and flames when they were set the house on fire. They were just on the deck of their house. So yeah, and so how do you put out a turkey fryer full of hot grease? Well, so you're gonna have to educate yourselves on those things. Like I want to tell people that. I want to give advice and people think, then, okay, well, I did that and they're covered. Have as many of them as you can, and they have to work. Remember that? The dial, the green, the red area. If you've had it for 10 years, it's probably not charged anymore. So do some research and cover yourself actively to have fire extinguishers. Your local fire department, you can call them and they will help you. Sometimes they'll even come in to give you information, tell you to come to the station. They have free courses. They show you how they work. The fire departments often offer that information.
So not only must our fire extinguishers be up to date, we need different fire extinguishers for different kind of fires. Maybe next
All
time
right.
about fire extinguishers. And and then smoke alarms. Obviously, most I think homes are required to come with smoke alarms, if I'm not mistaken. But how long do they last? And I think a lot of them will start chirping when the battery needs to be changed. But how long can we keep them, and how often do we have to change them out?
Now, a basic rule is what they went to. You have to have a certain amount of them in your home that are hardwired to the electricity. Then they have a battery backup. So when the battery goes on, they'll chirp, but they still should be plugged into your home to have power to them. The rule was, we had this daylight savings time, change them, and every time daylight savings time went back and forth, just automatically change your battery in your smoke detector. That was a good idea, wasn't it? Quarterly, every 6 months. Now most of the detectors are smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors also. Again, I'm going to tell you, I don't know your home, I don't know your specific situation, but find out. Those things do save lives. I'm telling you, in the middle of the night, you hear that going off, it can be time. It can be the difference between life and death. It really can. So I'm going to tell you, you can't have too many of them. And I don't think there's not many houses I go into that you don't hear chirping somewhere. You know what happens, Doc? You ignore it. You get used to ignoring it, don't you? You don't pay attention anymore. Well, and then when it stops chirping, people go, oh, good. It finally stopped. I don't have to worry about that noise anymore. But that means it's not working at all. So
Uh-oh.
why have it if it's not going to work? Stay on top of those.
So, in terms of before, we talked about insurance policies, we talked about fire extinguishers, we've talked about smoke alarms. What else can we do to help make sure that we're prepared should the worst occur? What about things like having a fire plan or marking windows? I think we talked about at another time. Can you talk more about that?
I'm going to give you one piece of advice I give everyone. Everyone in the world should have a fireproof, waterproof safe in their home to keep valuables in, to keep your computer things backed up, because what you said is true. Most people will even get out and want to go back for something they remember. So I have fireproof and waterproof. It has a red thing for the fire rating and a blue, because the fire department brings the water. And usually with safes, they're going to kick them over, throw them out the window and spray them. So you want something that will withstand sitting in water, so it'll be sealed so it can't get water inside, and withstand the heat of a fire. And that's where you put your hard drives or important documentation, because usually fires in the fire department destroy those things. Another thing that's important to have is, I was talking to you, Doc, about the ladders for second floors, especially if you have children. Look up fire rescue ladders, safety ladders. You might put some on the screen, Doc. You have pictures of what I sent you. They come in boxes. You flip the little box open. It looks like a little attaché case, and throw the end out the window, and a ladder pulls out on ropes, and it's just there in case you need. And teach your children how to use it. Yes, you should have fire drills or emergency escape drills in your home, because panic is what gets most people. What you do in practice, you do in the game. So most people haven't practiced it and they just get, what are you going to do, Doc? You said it. You're going for your children, aren't you? No matter what, you're going to go get your children. If you're a dog, you're going to go get your pet. So the more you have planned, the better chance you have of everybody, even if everybody goes out different doors, we're all out. We don't have to go out the same door. What if that way is blocked? So yes, practice this, especially with your children, over and over again, what to do. Remember from school, stop, drop, and roll. Do not stand up. That toxic smoke, one breath of it can knock you out. And getting low and feeling doorknobs if they're hot. Don't open doors because doors let in air and feed fires. Educate yourself because it literally is life and death.
Wow. Yeah. The other day I had burnt something in my oven, and I had sprayed it with the oven cleaner spray and then walked away and totally forgot about it. I turned on the next, week later, I turned on the oven, and these fumes, just from a little bit of spray, were coming out of the oven and choking me. I could barely breathe. And that was just from a little bit of spray from one can. I can't even begin to imagine um, what happens when a fire is in the house and all of the chemicals are letting out all kinds of crazy fumes. But so when people die in a fire, how are they usually dying from the being burned, or are they more often being dying from the inhalation of the toxic fumes? And what's the percentage of both, roughly?
Well, I'm not a fire professional in that sense, but my experience and everything I've read said the great majority is smoke inhalation. The smoke will take you out. So burning to death might take a little bit of while, but literally, if you think of carpet burning or like tires or rubber and your furniture and one breath, just and then once your eyes start burning and you can't breathe it well and you're disoriented and it's more smoke coming, most people the smoke get them. Most people. And
Wow.
in pets. So you all, that's why they tell you to get low. Do not breathe that smoke. I can't take it. I will even just to go on scenes later. I can't. And you'll smell a difference if you've had a fire in your fireplace or a campfire. And the smell you smelt when your neighbor's house was burning, it just burned, didn't it? Just to smell it a little bit. It's toxic. It's chemicals. All the things that weren't meant to burn do burn. And then electrical wiring. It's yeah. That's the bad stuff. Do try not to breathe that stuff.
So what does your family plan look like for escaping? What have you taught your family members to do in case of a fire?
Well, now that I'm empty nesters, the grown people when they're home can get out of windows and get out of doors. But
What about when they were little?
when they were little, I did those fire ladders, different ways to get out. I literally showed my children when they were small how to pull a chair to the window, make sure they could get the window open, and that was another thing. When you check your smoke detectors, check your windows. Well, you can have a window just hasn't been open for a long time through the heat and change of seasons, buildings expand and contract. And you might go to a window, it's kind of stuck. If you're an adult having a hard time, a child would have a hard time. But a child needs to be able to get out of a window by themselves. First floor, second floor. And it's not a bad idea to take them into the playground. Learn how to climb a ladder, to come up and down. Another thing it could honestly be, along with teaching them how to swim, is how to jump. The fire department comes. They can go up ladders, but your child can't be afraid of the fire professional and run away. So you got to have all, stranger danger, never go out the direction because the fireman comes in the window. So where would they go? But it's true. They are afraid. Same thing with your pets. A lot of people go back for pets. The pet thing, I've seen that so many times. And the pet is a stranger, they're running away. The more you practice, the better chance you have of everybody getting out safely. And even an older sibling going for a younger sibling. Hey, and we can talk to each other. I'm okay. You go out your way, I'm going out mine, rather than they're just not hearing and going for someone else. So contact your local fire department. And if you have a blueprint of your home, that's a good way to start. Even to go to them and say, what would you recommend for this house? Let your fire department earn their money, which is there for them, to teach you the best way. Do you have lit exit signs? Do you have flashlights? Do you have deadbolt locks with no key to it? How can they get out? You're being safe keep, the criminals out, but you've locked everybody in a house they can't get rid of. Bars on windows. There's supposed to be a key accessible to open the bar to get out. I could go on and on, but the better the plan, the better the chance you have of getting out if there is an emergency. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a fire. It could be an intruder for that matter. Same thing. Be able to exit your home safely and get everybody out safe.
Wow. So let's talk about, so there's a fire. I tried to cook something, it didn't work out so great. The pan is on fire. What is the correct way to use the fire extinguisher?
Well, again, what kind of fire extinguisher do you have? Is it charged? But one of the things that people do, I'm going to give you the basics because we talked about this, to spray at the base of the fire and not the top. So you know what? I'm going to, if nothing else, go to YouTube and say fire. And it has so many videos on the different kind of fire extinguishers, the different kind you can purchase them yourself now. Oftentimes they have them even in the big box stores. And when you get that one, if you buy a kitty fire extinguisher, they have a link there or a scan a code and it shows you how to use this particular fire extinguisher. I do not want people grabbing a fire extinguisher, remembering what I said here, and turning it the wrong way and it not work. You got to educate yourself as to what you have available to you and what you purchased. And if it's old, get another one. You got to have one that works. When it doesn't work, there's no get to. That's common sense, isn't it?
Well, how do we know that it no longer works?
There's a gauge on them. If it's in the red, it means it's no longer charged.
Okay, so we have to get the fire extinguishers, but we need to know how to use them too.
Get them, know how to use them, and keep up with that expiration date and make sure they're still good. The old metal ones, a lot of times you can actually get them recharged, but most of them now have got to be so inexpensive. It really doesn't cost that much just to buy some more, especially small ones. I keep 2 in my garage, one at the front, one at the back, because what you all have to remember is the smoke and the fire oftentimes keeps you from getting to a certain place. So if you have a fire in the front and your extinguisher's in the back, you can't get to it, it's not going to do you any good. Here's another piece of advice that I personally use. In your wintertime, most people have a water hose. I keep water hoses on every spigot outside my home. But in the winter, if it's frozen, what good can it do? Even just put out a fire or for that reason, a fire is soaking my roof. So remember to drain your water hoses when you use them for frozen weather. And to make sure your spigot has a little insulation thing over it, whatever the case is. Because if it's frozen, you can't get any water.
Wow, that's a good point. So we're back in my kitchen. My romantic dinner is not working out. It's on fire. How do I know when to bail and say it's time to leave the house versus trying to fight the fire?
Good question. Call 911. I don't care what happens. You would be surprised how fast. There's another one for you too. And I have so many links and information I could give, but how fast in 30 seconds a fire can come from this to blazing and then producing that smoke. So call them. Try not to fight. I have one client, they get burns, 3rd degree, 2nd and 3rd on their hands trying to put out a fire. Once you see fire and flames, you all unless you're a professional, do not try to fight it. By human nature, people are going to want to, but at least call 911. If it's a piece of toast and the toaster that burned, you can always call them back. You can always be outside when they come, but call 911. I'm not going to stress that too little. No matter what, call 911 first.
Okay.
Get out. If you see a flame, that was not. You see a flame, get out. Anything more than my toaster, I'm getting out.
Okay, so it's like when we do CPR, the first thing we do is we say, you call 911. So the first step in the fire is call 911.
And I'm going to tell you the truth. Well, that kind of goes back to keep your phone charged up, right? Keep your phone where you can get it. Too many people can't call 911. Let both of them call. Because what if one call doesn't go through or one person in is just, they started calling, but they got distracted, didn't finish the call. Call them. People should know where their local fire department is also to give you an idea of their response time. But you can call your fire department. They can tell you that on a busy day. But, ordinarily, if the fire department's on your block, well, they should be there in 3 or 4 minutes, correct? But if you are honestly and truly 40 minutes away from a fire station and they tell you average calls to your home or this area may be 40 minutes, You're not going to be in there fighting fire for 40 minutes. You don't have that much time. It's going to get bad. So please, please, please use your professionals, use common sense, and don't get yourself into a situation where then you blocked or you blocked your own exit. You can't get out. It's too much smoke. Be wise and use your professionals.
And when we're leaving the house, is there anything that we should grab while we're leaving, or should we have a quick grab bag that has essentials, or should we just leave and save our lives?
Remember that thing about the safe? If you know that everything important's in there, now you can leave without worrying about it. Life is the first thing. Your children, your kids, the things. But don't go back in the flaming areas you are. That stuff, we always say that, don't we? Stuff can be replaced. Humans cannot. So there's nothing worth dying for. You got to program yourself for that, because you probably will. You probably will think of something. Get this, get that. But it depends on where in the house you are. If you have a 3-level house and you're on the ground floor, you're not going back upstairs to get a document. That's what the safe is for. Keep the things backed up in the safe, knowing that if you have to get out, you can get out. It'll be there when you need it later.
And I thought about getting a fireproof safe, although mine is broken, but I never thought about the waterproof part, but that's so true. So do you have any particular brands that you recommend?
Well, they may not be cheap, and you want to get one that's the right size. So I do not have a brand I can recommend, because, for instance, one big box store carries one brand, one carries another. I recommend you doing your research and maybe look at some of their feedback and ratings. How have these, just getting it isn't going to help if it doesn't work. So a little more money, I would spend a little more money to get something that has a longer fire rating, meaning it can take so many degrees for a longer period of time before it breaks down, or it can be in 1 foot of water versus 2 foot of water. Buy the best thing you can afford, better than just a brand or model. Get the best thing you can possibly afford, and the largest, because those little ones, they fill up pretty fast. You'd be surprised at two books and a family album. And I'm going to tell you all, pictures. And my mom's fire, that's one of the things they really lost. I had a lot of pictures saved on hard drives. But can you imagine all of your pictures of all of your children and just gone? So back that stuff up digitally, keep it in the safe, and you can have it reproduced. It's not worth dying for to grab a picture.
Wow. That's so heartbreaking, because so many things can be replaced, but photographs before we had them digitized cannot be replaced. So finally, through the worst case scenario happens, there's a fire, you lose everything. And we started talking about this before. The firefighters are there. What are the next things? And we know you've got to be careful about what you say and who you say to, but what are the next moves? What are the next things to do to
You know what I'm going to do, Doc?
what?
Because actually my battery's running low and I don't want my phone. We're going to come back with part 2. And we
Okay.
talked about before, well, let's do it during and after and get that in the same amount of time we've been talking so far. Because I do want people to have information. And you'd be surprised. Another thing about, before, I got to tell you all this before. Most people aren't insured correctly, first and foremost, on the amount of insurance they purchase. You bought insurance on the purchase price of your home. That's what most people did. But
Mhm.
just think of this. If your house was, God forbid, to burn to the ground, if a windstorm came and blew your house completely away, could you rebuild your house completely for that amount of money? And most people, the answer would be no. Because first you're going to have to clear off everything and get to a point where you can even start building again.
Oh,
So
wow.
most people are uninsured because they don't have a right amount of insurance. Let's start there on our next thing. How much insurance should I have to deal with what happens during a fire, and then what to do after?
Okay, I love it. I thank you so much for your time. Thank you for squeeze. I know you're very busy. Thank you for making time in your busy day. And this
Always will.
information is more than valuable. It can definitely help to save lives. So thank you once again. And I look forward to part 2. Thank you, Mr. Wayne
Thank
Harris.
you, Doc. Have a great day. See you all later.
All right, take care.
I'm gonna call you, Doc.